It takes a lot to make it in sport. It takes even more to make it in motorsport. And Formula One is the pinnacle. More men have been into space than have won a Formula One race. So what are the chances of making it all the way to the top? Guts, talent, flair, luck.
Above all else these days, you have to have money to back you.
It's going to take all of that if one of these young drivers is going to be Britain's next F1 star. In this programme, we look at a driver with a name steeped in the history of motorsport, who's aiming to become a third-generation Formula One superstar.
I love motorsport, I just love everything about it.
It's through! What a great move by Josh Hill!
Josh Hill's grandfather Graham was a double world champion in Formula One, and his dad Damon also took the title.
I know for a fact that my dad didn't want me to become a racing driver.
Josh Hill's going to try and come through. Great manoeuvre by Hill.
A late starter, this hungry young racer is already a winner in Formula Renault.
If I just met myself on the street and I was meeting race Josh, then I wouldn't really like myself, I don't think.
Look at Josh Hill around the outside.
This is brave stuff from Hill.
Now, Josh Hill aims to add his name to the F1 record books.
With that history and heritage, I think it's pretty tough for them.
This is going to be a brave move if he can make this one stick.
One thing you've got to say about Josh, he's a have-a-go driver.
I was not too interested in motorsport really, just interested in doing my own thing and going to school, seeing my mates, and didn't really have any motorsport ambitions from an early age.
When he was very young, he hadn't got a clue what I was doing, and then evidently one of his friends at school was talking about a chap called Damon Hill, and he came home and said, "Who's Damon Hill?" And Mum had to explain it to him.
I don't think what my dad did was anything special. In fact, to a point, I thought everyone's dads went away racing for a weekend or went away to do their job on the weekend and got interviewed by loads of people and photographed.
You know, it would have been very easy to take the next one along and put him in a go-kart, I mean, at the very early age, and get him one for Christmas and take him karting and put him through that whole karting experience. And I honestly thought that wasn't the right thing to do. I
obviously knew about what he did and knew about what my granddad did, and I was very proud of it, but I didn't really consider following them into motorsport. So it's a bit of a shock when I said to my dad I'd like to start motor racing.
When he came to me when he was about 15, I think, and said he wanted to be a racing driver.
It's his fault, really.
I took him around Silverstone. There was a two-seater experience that we were doing for some other event, and so he hopped in the back and I took him around Silverstone, and I think unfortunately that lit the fuse.
That blew me away completely, just the speed of it and the ferocity of it was just quite exciting, I think. It was actually the next week that I then said to my dad, can I have a go at go-karting?
Jenson Button for Lewis Hamilton's dad, you know, they'd been through the karting business. I looked at karting, I knew nothing. It's a bit late for that now anyway, because they started when they were 8. So you'd be going in at the deep end.
He asked me, do you really want to do this? I know what it takes, will you let me guide you through it, because it's a long process? And I said yes and yes.
I thought the first thing you've got to establish is whether this is a dream that is going to turn into a reality which he doesn't like, or whether it is a real, earnest desire to do it matched with an ability to do it.
He put me in a Club 100 go-kart first, just to see if I had anything.
I love going to kart races because there you can actually see what's happening. You can see the drivers working because it's all exposed, and you're seeing young, raw talent all having a go.
So you have to fight his way through that, and tolerate the, the cold weather, the filthy conditions, and all of that. And if you don't want to put up with that, then you really shouldn't be doing it anyway.
Turns out I did sort of have something there, so kept working on it.
In a sense, it's good that he's made that choice, and at a mature age, to be able to say that's a career he'd like to pursue, and that we can act on that rather than presume, when he's too young to understand exactly what it involves, that he would like to become a racing driver.
Josh now finds himself in demand at all sorts of motorsport events. And when you're a Hill, there's a celebrity status that comes with the territory.
I'm at the Excel Arena today for Top Gear Live. We're in a sort of Sons of F1 kart race. My dad wasn't really giving me too much advice. He doesn't really know much about karting because he started off in bikes. Just said it looked slippy out there and I said yes, and that's about it. It's not taken too seriously, but at the end of the day we still want to beat each other. It'd be nice to win, but if I have a good race then I'll be quite happy. There's not quite enough grip to floor it at the moment. It's almost like driving in the wet out there. You've got to be very careful with the throttle. I actually finished 4th. I really enjoy being out here and putting on a good show.
Josh Hill was just 5 when his father Damon became F1 world champion. And he never met his grandfather Graham, who died in 1975.
Having a strong family name historically linked to motor racing can be a massive blessing, and it can be a huge hindrance.
It's quite a unique perspective I got on the whole industry.
With a name like that, with a father and a grandfather, with that history and heritage, I think it's pretty tough for them.
Well, I don't think my parents ever wanted me to become a racing driver. I know for a fact that my dad didn't want me to become a racing driver, but he wasn't around from the age of 15 onwards, and I never expressed an interest in car racing at all at an early age, but I was very interested in bikes from about the age of 11. And so I had to break it to my mum, do you mind, Mum, would it be awfully upsetting if I expressed my desire to become the next Barry Sheen? And so I think she took a bit of a deep gulp, and but her attitude was, as long as you're doing it properly, as long as you're doing it professionally, and as long as that's what you really want, then she'd be supportive of that.
I do remember back in the 80s watching from a distance and then seeing firsthand Damon doing his first car racing, in fact his first few seasons. And Josh does remind me of his dad in many ways, in his style, in his driving style, and the way he carries himself outside of the car as well. So I would have thought that Josh could emulate his father to a certain degree and progress in the sport.
It's not a bad legacy to try and improve, really. I'm already doing better than my dad or my granddad were because they hadn't started racing by now, so hopefully I can get to F1 before they've ever started racing. But no, I'd love to carry the Hill helmet back into the F1 paddock again. My granddad first used this helmet because he was part of the London Rowing Club, and that was the design they used on their caps, dark blue with white. They're meant to be oars and the blue for the water. He adopted that onto his crash helmet to make him stand out a bit more. And then my dad used it for his helmet as well, in honour. And I'm happy to carry on that tradition. It's a very famous helmet and I'm honoured to be wearing it. I think it would have been a lot different if my dad wasn't a world champion. If he's just your bog standard dad, if I have any sort of problem I can just ring him up and have an honest heart-to-heart chat with him, father to son, but at the same time he is my manager and my mentor, so it becomes a little bit difficult sometimes to split the manager from the father.
So I've taken the decision to try and remove myself directly from controlling Josh. So I've asked for some help from other experienced people. If it comes from someone else, then it's easier for him to take it on board, because in a way he wants to differentiate himself from me, which is quite right. It's quite natural. You don't want to always be doing what your parents tell you what to do.
There are many other young drivers, sons of world champions, sons of successful racing drivers, that have perhaps benefited in the very beginning, just having an early ease into the industry. But once you get started, you're the same as everybody else. You're on the same kind of car, on the same grid, and you've got to get the same sort of results.
You'd think that having my dad and my granddad would open quite a few doors and make sponsors a little bit more enticing. It's almost just as hard, to be honest, to get any sponsors. This is my room, my office, my bedroom, my playroom, my rehearsal space, pretty much everything I do other than motor racing happens in here. This is just a bit of my silverware. These are the more recent ones, so it's quite nice to have them around. My two main passions in life, other than motorsport, are my music and computer games. My dad always played music from when he was about my age. No matter where you went, there was always a guitar in the corner of the room sitting there. Just like starting motorsport, it's only a matter of time before I picked one up and started messing around on it. My drumming and my guitar, improving my hand-eye coordination the whole time, and it's a good sort of cognitive thing to be doing. Drumming's just got a fun hobby, a bit of a stress release really. You get to hit things really hard.
Josh certainly has the pedigree, but does he have everything else it takes to be Britain's next F1 star? Despite his family heritage, Josh Hill didn't get into motorsport until he was 15. But he was quickly tipped to follow his father and grandfather into Formula One.
Come on through, Josh. That's good to see you again. Right, we're going to do a little bit of running around Monaco today. So,
Josh knows that if he is to emulate them, simulator training is key to a young driver getting an edge.
yeah, okay, well come on in. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to have about a 20-minute warm-up session, just running around Monaco. So I'm just going to give you a chance just to sort of settle yourself back into the simulator.
Whenever you drive something else, you're gaining more experience and new experience, so that's always good for learning.
The main benefit really of simulation is a controlled environment, that nothing ever changes. It's quite easy for drivers in real life to blame their engine or tyres or weather conditions. In here, because everything doesn't change, it makes things very, very measurable. And of course here we have no sort of crash damage to pay for. We can stop, we can talk to the driver, we can really analyse every area of personal performance.
That's where simulators come into their own, is when you're driving a track where you never get to drive at any other time of the year. So Monaco is only available on the race weekend, and the other times it's public roads.
If you want to take your crash helmet off now, what we're going to do is we're going to put the eye tracker on, okay, and we're just going to monitor the vision for a few laps. We just want to have a look at the visual inputs that you're taking on board. What we're really trying to look for, obviously with a driver like yourself that's already running near the front, if we could maybe unlock 100th of a second in and 100th of a second out, 10 corners, that's 2 tenths. To maybe unlock even a tenth of a second is night and day, at the sharp end. And drivers can chase a tenth or two all season long. Generally, your vision's pretty good, but we need it to be exceptional. As you can see, you're just a little bit low on the vision. If you can sort of lift that to taking good early information, because that's what we want to see. If we make a small mistake, we want to see the mistake nice and early. You might lose a little bit of time, but if you see a mistake late at Monaco, you're in the wall.
If you want to get into F1 nowadays, it seems, you've got to either be astoundingly good, sort of Vettel, Hamilton good before you even got to F1, or you've got to have a bit of money behind you.
I have put money in. It would be it'd be a bit mean of me not to. Only the trouble is, this business will chew up every penny you've got. So there has to be some sort of commercial sense to it. How the hell do you make commercial sense out of going motor racing?
That's why it can be viewed as a little bit of a privileged sport, because you've got to have a bit of money behind you in the first place to even start.
For a season of what he's doing right now, you could put about 7 people through university.
Depending on which championship you're in, you're looking for between 200 and 350,000, which is an astronomical figure.
The whole championship that Josh is in right now is costing something like £5 million just for that one junior championship, if you add up the cost of all the cars that are entered. So that's £5 million from about 30 parents, invested in them going racing.
It needs to sort out the financial side of it. It is running away with itself. The costs to do GP2 and GP3 are ridiculous. And they need to take a good look at that in the way that they're cutting down the costs in Formula One. That needs to filter through. It's all about making money, it seems to me.
GP2 now you're looking at nearly €2.5 million, which is just astounding, really. It's amazing they can charge that much.
We've got a quandary at the moment. I think other categories are starting to gain respectability. The Renault World Series at the moment, to me, seems to represent better value. GP2 is probably holding on to too many drivers that have been there too long. If it's a development formula, I think we've got to think about how we reduce costs. And also, the top teams don't want to take the commercial risk, so they don't take rookies, they take experienced drivers. Having a driver hanging around in GP2 for 5 years, I don't think makes much sense. Doesn't make much sense for their backers, doesn't make much sense for the sport. If we could bring down the costs of that, if we could say to the teams, right, you can have, you can't be any longer than 3 years in GP2, and each team has to have a rookie as one of the team members, then I think it would be a much more dynamic way of developing drivers.
A lot of them have made massive sacrifices. Their families have invested all their time, their life and their savings in getting through, and they've won races, and they've won McLaren, BRDC, Autosport Awards and stuff. And now they're mixing it with 25 other guys who are exactly as good as they are. So you have to be even better than that just to get looked at. So often you get the question put, how good are people at drivers in Formula One? Isn't it just the car? Well, I'll tell you what, you try it. Just try to get there. The guys in Formula One have been through that process. Even if they've brought money, they've been through a massive test of their ability and their endurance and their stickability, because they've been through a lot of really bad weekends when it seems like everything they put in has been wasted, including their parents' monies.
Parents have got to remember that and make sure, aim high, wish for it, support them, but keep your feet and the children's feet on the ground. Make sure that you keep an education, make sure that you develop other options, and make sure that just in case you're not that 0.0001% that get there, if you're a part of the 99.999%, then make sure you've got something else that's going to be meaningful in your life.
These are all the mad things that you have to deal with if you're going to go motor racing. Your head is spinning because you're trying to explain to someone, listen, it does make sense somehow because some people get through. Just look at the people who've got through. I got through. My dad got through. Conditions were slightly different, but it is possible. And if there's a slim chance, even if there's a slim chance, people will try. And I think it's fantastic, this to see the competition, but it's heartbreaking as well.
Simulator time is vital, especially for learning circuits like Monaco, where Josh's grandfather won 5 times.
So coming across the start line now, it's not really a straight, sort of a bend, but it's flat out, so difficult braking for the first corner at Sandovo, and I've lost it, and there we go. I straightened it up. I can remember going to my first Grand Prix, which is Monaco, when I was about 6. My dad said your first lap feels like it takes 10 seconds, just because it's such a rush. You can't take everything in at once. You got a fast left-hander called Massenet before the fast right-hander of Casino Square, and dropped down to 3rd, just hook around the barrier. Quite a bumpy exit, you've got to mind the bump on the way out. But then after a while, once you've done a couple of laps, it starts to slow down, and it almost feels like a whole lap takes about 2 minutes, because it's just all sort of coming at you in slow motion, and you can pick out points on the track that you never even noticed before. And then there's the hairpin, nice tight hairpin, you've got to hook it right in. And then you've got Lowe's hairpin, which is the tightest corner in F1, it's first gear, almost full lock. And you've got the tight, quite hard right. And then Portier, which is the corner before the tunnel. Little tiny bumps onto the way into a corner, even just a slight deviation in the white line at the side of the track, a bit of a discoloration on the tarmac, anything. You can pick it out and use it, and you can say, as a reference point, you can use it as a way of setting the car up for the corner.
When we first went to Monaco with Ayrton Senna in '84, he drove around for the first time, and everyone went roaring past the pits, one after another, and Ayrton came around like he was popping and banging, driving so slowly it was an embarrassment. And he did that for 8 laps, and then put in a quick lap, went straight to the top of the timesheets. And when he came in, I asked Rory, our engineer, what did he have to say, and he just said, there's an awful lot to learn about this place. He explained that coming through the Casino Square, if he didn't take a late turn in, he would clip a bolt that supported the Armco, and that would have taken out his left rear wheel, smashed it.
Now we're into the tunnel, and you've got a fast, flat-out right-hander. Gets a bit bumpy for it. Then you brake really hard for the chicane. Nice heavy braking. Mind the wall on the way out.
It's amazing what you can actually do once you're fully tuned into a circuit and a car.
You've got to run onto the back, fast left-hander. You've got to hook it right into the wall and let it run right out. And then you've got the fast left-right swimming pool. Hook it right in again. It's a fast left, right, right, left. And then into the Raskas, because there's the Raskas Cafe on the inside. That's why it's called that. And then a really tight, tricky, anti-nogs corner to finish the lap. And that's it. That's lap of Monaco.
A racing career is the goal for this third-generation Hill, and he's shooting for the very top.
A few people say I want to be in Le Mans, a few people want to say I want to be a British touring car driver, you know. But most people, 90% of them are saying I want to get to F1.
Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport. It should be difficult to get here. It should be difficult to stay here. It should be difficult to win here.
I'm getting tantalisingly close.
It's never been more difficult than it is now, and that's because Formula One itself is really, really competitive.
A lot of racing drivers don't make it, but I hope to hell that I do.
It's just not as easy as it looks, and it's going to be a lot of pain and agony along the way. Will it be worth it? I don't know. I think we should be able to gain from all these experiences.
Just because you've got the name Hill and you're wearing a famous helmet, that doesn't mean you've got an extra 4 attempts on everyone. It means you've worked harder for those extra 4 attempts.
If you do half as well as Damon, you're not doing too badly.
I think that the future's very bright for him.
The only thing you can do is keep pushing and keep searching for that next win. As long as you keep winning, then you're on your way.